9 Lives of Leo Roberts, a series of interconnected short stories written and narrated by Robert Fairhead from the Tall and True Writers website. 2. A Fast Car, Part 1. Elsie thought it unlikely Leo would tell her the truth about the unregistered second-hand car he'd asked family friend Bernie to tow to the abandoned quarry. But she still pressed her 16-year-old great-nephew about it, over breakfast at the kitchen table. "Bernie told me about your new car, Leo," Elsie said. "Are you planning to drive it around the quarry, dear?" "Nah, I wouldn't do that, Aunty," Leo replied, spooning cereal into his mouth, and wishing old Bernie had kept his mouth shut. "I just want to work on it, without upsetting our neighbours." Elsie stared at Leo, wanting to believe him. She had helped raise the boy since his birth, and whenever her niece Rita struggled with the responsibilities of being a single parent, which was often, Elsie stepped in and was his stable mother figure. "Leo dear," she sighed, "you can't afford to get into any more trouble with the police." "I won't, Aunty," Leo asserted, an exasperated edge entering his voice. "I'll tune the engine, and then I'll ask Bernie to tow the car back home and sell it for a profit." "But you've got a garage and tools here," Elsie tried reasoning with him. "Yeah, and nosy neighbours over the fence," Leo retorted. He stood up and started pacing the kitchen, tugging at his hair. If only Bernie hadn't told Aunty Elsie about the car. Leo's attitude was, what his great-aunt and mother didn't know wouldn't hurt them. "Look, Aunty," he said, resuming his seat, and hoping a little honesty would aid his cause. "My mates and I have built a lean-to workshop at the quarry. We're already working on a car that a mate's dad towed up there for us. And Bernie knows about the quarry. He helped us with tools and building materials for the workshop." "Oh, did he?" Elsie said, arching an eyebrow and making a mental note to chastise Bernie for not mentioning the quarry workshop earlier. "Yeah," Leo said, suddenly feeling like a lawyer on one of the American TV shows he and Aunty Elsie liked to watch. "So, as the quarry's not a secret," he delivered his closing argument, "it's okay for Bernie to tow my car there. Yeah?" Elsie sighed again. "I don't know, Leo. I'm worried it'll be too tempting to drive the car around the quarry, or worse, on the road. The police gave you a warning last time. They won't give you a second chance." Elsie and Leo stopped talking as Rita shuffled into the kitchen, still half asleep in a dressing gown and slippers. She was hungover after a late night at the pub and needed her morning mug of strong black coffee. While Rita didn't acknowledge Elsie and Leo and kept her back to them, she had overheard her aunt's comment about the police warning. "Have you been driving on the road again, Leo?" Rita asked, switching on the kettle and spooning coffee and sugar into her mug. "No, I haven't," he replied, the exasperated edge back in his voice. "And I only drove my old car around the block to test the engine." Rita spun about, her eyes wide open and wild, glaring at Leo. "It doesn't matter whether you drove the car around the block or to the moon and back. It was unregistered, and you don't have a licence. The police should have thrown the book at you." "Oh yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you?" Leo exploded, standing and glaring back at his mother. "Then you could forget about me and nick off with some bloke." "Rita, Leo, please," Elsie pleaded, trying to defuse the situation. "Can we talk about this calmly?" The kitchen fell silent, with only the sound of the kettle boiling, as red-faced Rita and Leo tried to outstare each other across the table. And then the boiled kettle whistled, signalling the end of the latest round of the mother and son standoff. Rita turned her back on Leo, switched off the kettle, and filled her mug. Steam rose like an English mist from the coffee. Rita mused that she always drank tea for breakfast in England, never coffee, and how different her life could have been had Leo's father, Billy, honoured his promise to stand by her. "You talk to Leo about the car, Aunty," Rita said, shuffling out of the kitchen with her coffee. "He never listens to me." The tension eased without Rita in the room, but Elsie still felt flustered and short of breath. She breathed deeply and wondered, as she often did, why her niece was so bitter and angry. Rita was the mother of a beautiful son. For a moment, Elsie reflected on whether her niece would have been happier if she hadn't helped her at the clinic 16 years ago. But Elsie shook the thought from her head as Leo sat and started eating his cereal again. "I'm sorry, Aunty," he said, without lifting his eyes from the cereal bowl. I didn't mean to shout at you. Or Mum, he added half-heartedly. I know, dear, Elsie said, reaching across the table and patting his free hand. Your mother is in another one of her moods, and we're all worried about you. You don't need to worry, Aunty, Leo assured Elsie. I'll do my chores and homework during the week, and only work on the car at the quarry workshop on weekends. And I promise I won't drive it around the quarry, or on the roads. Promise me, Leo? Elsie asked, with a last sigh. Leo looked up at his great-aunt and smiled. Yeah, I promise, Aunty. Hi, I'm Robert Fairhead from Tall and True Short Reads and the Tall and True Writers website. Seasons 1 to 4 of Tall and True Short Reads featured the short stories, blog posts, travel writing and memoir pieces I've shared on Tall and True. Most are standalone episodes, but I also narrated several multi-part episodes for longer stories and posts. For Season 5, I set myself the goal of writing and narrating a series of interconnected short stories exploring sliding door moments, titled The 9 Lives of Leo Roberts. The Gotham Writers Workshop defines interconnected short stories as stories that are complete in that each story can stand alone, but when put together, they interrelate and create a larger whole. Writing the stories for Season 5 has proved to be an ambitious goal, and one that's taking far longer than I'd expected. My 6-month involvement in Australia's federal election campaign earlier this year and a recent 5-week road trip to Uluru haven't helped me achieve my story deadlines. So far for Season 5, I've released 2 episodes, Prologue, The Clinic, and 1, Rock Fishing. And I was working on the 3rd episode, 2, A Fast Car, before I set off on my road trip. The other factor that's impacted my release schedule is that the 9 Lives of Leo Roberts stories are all longer than the short stories, blog posts and other writing I shared in Seasons 1 to 4. They take longer to write, narrate and produce as podcast episodes. I realised this when I returned to 2, A Fast Car, after my road trip. The story is 5 times longer than my usual short stories. It would not be a short read. But it is a 3-part story, so I decided each part would make for a slightly longer than usual short reads episode. All of this is a long-winded way of saying I hope you enjoy listening to A Fast Car, Part 1, set at the kitchen breakfast table with teenage Leo from the rock fishing episode and his great-aunt Elsie and mother Rita. I'll be releasing Part 2 shortly, followed by the concluding Part 3 vignette. Meanwhile, I've started writing the next story in the 9 Lives of Leo Roberts, 3, The House Party. Please visit the podcast website, tallandtrueshortreads.com, or browse your podcasting app feed for earlier Season 5 episodes and to listen to over 100 episodes from Seasons 1 to 4. You'll find a selection of my short stories, blog posts and other writings at tallandtrue.com. You can also buy my short story and microfiction collections from the Amazon Kindle, Apple Books and Kobo online bookstores. There are links in the show notes. Please follow or subscribe to Tall and True Short Reads and rate and review it on your favourite podcasting app. Doing so helps other listeners find my storytelling. You can support the podcast and my Season 5 short stories by making a small one-off or regular donation through the Acast supporter page. Once again, there's a link in the show notes. Finally, please share this episode with family and friends and help spread the word about Tall and True Short Reads and the Tall and True Writers website.